Professor Ban sat in his narrow study, resembling a statue crushed beneath the heavy pressure of time and space. The piles of ancient documents surrounding him rose like silent watchtowers guarding the dusty memories of the past. In the corner of the room, an aging air conditioner, nearing the end of its life, emitted dry gasps with a hoarse voice, as if declaring defeat to the suffocating waves of heat that scourged the city. The sky beyond the window was no longer the clear blue we once knew. It was stained with a hazy, sickly yellow, shrouded in dust, smog, and thermal radiation. Professor Ban exhaled a deep sigh as he gazed at the flickering points of light on his computer screen. Those points symbolized distant galaxies millions of light-years away, silent, isolated, and unreachable entities. He took a sip of tea, but it had already cooled, leaving a metallic taste in his mouth. His thoughts stretched beyond the heat-distorted gray concrete walls, flowing into the infinite void of the universe. This was a sensation both terrifying and captivating, as if he himself were being swept among those stars, listening to the whispers of the cosmos. These whispers were filled with mysteries that made the soul tremble, inviting humanity beyond the boundaries of imagination, deep into the event horizon. His mind traveled back to 1929, the pivotal moment when Edwin Hubble fundamentally altered humanity's cosmic position. Before then, the universe was imagined as a static, eternal, and unchanging stage. However, Hubble revealed a shocking truth through the lens of his telescope: everything was receding from us. Observing distant galaxies, he discovered that their light did not retain its original color. After journeys spanning millions of years, that light arrived weary and weakened, quietly sliding towards the red end of the spectrum. This redshift was not merely a physical phenomenon, it was a long, sorrowful farewell from our cosmic neighbors. Imagine watching distant flames not burning brightly and vividly, but fading into a dim red glow, vanishing into an infinite mist and leaving an irreplaceable sense of loss. Professor Ban imagined the universe as a vast rubber sheet expanding in all directions. The galaxies did not move within the universe, the real issue was that the space itself between us and them was inflating. This expansion was far from slow. Hubble demonstrated that the farther a galaxy, the faster its recession speed from us, a cruel proportionality of parting. Known in scientific circles as Hubble's law, this principle served as the most fundamental tool for measuring the universe's expansion. Yet, data from 2025, drawn from the James Webb Space Telescope and the Hubble Space Telescope, stirred profound unease on this matter. The renowned constant determining the expansion rate hovered between 70 and 73 km per second per megaparsec in local measurements, while echoes from the universe's inception whispered values around 67 km per second per megaparsec. This discrepancy, dubbed the Hubble Tension, deepened the grand cosmic enigma. It was as if the universe resisted complete comprehension, concealing clues about the undiscovered nature of dark matter or dark energy. Recent 2025 data from the Atacama Cosmology Telescope's final release, alongside studies of strongly lensed quasars, sharpened this tension further, implying a need to reconsider our models of the universe. These findings pointed towards possibilities of new physics, suggesting that cosmic expansion might transcend the laws we currently understand. For instance, new cosmic lens measurements in December 2025 have intensified the mystery, with lensing-based approaches confirming an 8% difference that surpasses the traditional 5 sigma threshold for significance, potentially heralding revisions to our understanding of early universe dynamics or exotic particles. He placed his palm on the wooden desk, feeling the faint vibrations from vehicles passing on the street below. In this universe, there existed an invisible yet absolute boundary beyond which even light could not reach us, the horizon of the observable universe. This boundary, with a radius of approximately 46.5 billion light-years, marked the edge of physical reality. It meant that a civilization shining in a galaxy at that vast distance, illuminating entire galaxies with the energy of billions of stars, would never have its light reach us. It could be likened to a traveler running upwards on a rapidly descending escalator. The escalator's speed is so great that no matter the effort, reality perpetually recedes. Estimates from 2025 affirm that the observable universe's radius remains around 46.5 billion light-years, revealing regions where the universe's expansion exceeds the speed of light. Recent studies in 2025, particularly data from the Dark Energy Spectroscopic Instrument, cast a faint ray of hope that this mysterious force's strength might weaken over time. The Dark Energy Spectroscopic Instrument's 3-year data analysis overturned prior assumptions viewing dark energy as a cosmological constant, strongly indicating it could evolve with cosmic time. If dark energy is not fixed, the universe might not scatter into infinite expansion but could someday slow, halt, or even collapse and rebirth itself. This cyclical universe concept alleviated a sliver of the deep melancholy in Professor Ban's soul. Perhaps every end cradles the seed of a new beginning. Yet, this cosmic perspective proved insufficient to erase the heavy solitude weighing on Professor Ban's inner self. The silence from external civilizations might stem not from their absence but from the universe actively isolating us. 98% of known galaxies had already ventured beyond our reach. The majestic structures viewed through telescopes were mere ghosts of the past, light emitted billions of years ago when they were still within our horizon. Today, they have vanished into darkness. Enrico Fermi's famous question echoed in his mind, "Where is everybody?" If the universe teemed with life, why had we heard not a single sound? Frank Drake's equation suggested thousands of civilizations ought to exist, yet the universe's expansion separated us from one another. Academic discussions in 2025 explained this silence through the Great Filter theory, positing that civilizations might collapse under self-inflicted crises before achieving interstellar travel. Alternatively, the universe could be a dark forest, where survival necessitates hiding. The dark forest hypothesis proposes that extraterrestrial civilizations abound but remain silent and concealed out of fear, offering a chilling resolution to Fermi's paradox. The Great Filter concept, proposed by Robin Hanson, implies nearly insurmountable barriers on the path from life to superintelligent civilizations, reminding us that humanity has yet to surmount such obstacles. These theories rendered the universe's quietude a deeper mystery, arousing curiosity about whether our existence is accidental or inevitable. Professor Ban averted his eyes from the screen and focused on the stifling air in the room. As humanity, we lived within an ever-narrowing bubble of light. In the distant future, approximately 1.5 trillion years hence, the night sky would be enveloped in terrifying emptiness. All points of light beyond our galaxy and its neighbors would disappear. Astronomers then, if any remained, would gaze upwards at a lonely, dark universe, unaware that the sky once sparkled with trillions of galaxies. This was the heat death theorized by Rudolf Clausius, everything cooling, disorder triumphing in ultimate silence. Recent theories in 2025 re-evaluated the inevitability of heat death, proposing that if dark energy evolves, the universe might meet a different fate. Nonetheless, it is still regarded as heading towards a state where usable energy vanishes, emphasizing the irreversible transition from order to chaos through increasing entropy. A surprising model from 2025 suggests the universe's lifespan might be as short as 33 billion years, with heat death arriving sooner if certain parameters hold, though alternatives like a big freeze persist in discussions. A sharp horn blare from the street pulled Professor Ban from this cosmic reverie. He returned to the harsh reality of his blue planet. While the universe expanded into cold, empty darkness, our sole refuge, Earth, writhed in fever. What a tragic irony! Above, space grew sparse; below, everything pressed against one another. He opened a message from a colleague in Europe. The data pierced his heart like needles. Thermometers in Portugal registered 47 degrees Celsius, thousands perished from heatwaves in Spain, even France's proud symbol, the Eiffel Tower, succumbed beneath the heat, its massive metal frame expanding and deforming. Data from 2025 confirmed this year as one of the hottest on record, potentially the second or third warmest, with global average temperatures exceeding pre-industrial levels by more than 1.5 degrees Celsius. Japan endured its hottest summer in over a century, with July 2025 marking the warmest month since 1898, averaging 2.16 degrees Celsius above the 1991 to 2020 baseline. On the 5th of August, records were shattered twice in a single day, climbing from 41.6 to 41.8 degrees Celsius. Professor Ban walked to the window and looked down at the chaotic traffic. Thousands of automobiles crawled like steel monsters, spewing toxic gases. Air conditioners clung to building exteriors, selfishly drawing in internal heat and expelling it outwards. The city heated like a colossal metal grill, with concrete and asphalt trapping warmth, amplifying the merciless cycle known as the urban heat island. He murmured to himself, "The more air conditioners, the greater the heat." If this trend persisted, summer temperatures reaching 60 degrees Celsius in some regions would be merely a matter of time. This was no mere numeral, it was a death sentence. At such levels, biological proteins in living organisms would begin structural collapse, that is, denaturation. Asphalt would melt beneath feet, power grids would crumble under cooling demands. When Earth transformed into hell, where would people flee? Perhaps underground like rats escaping sunlight, attempting survival in artificial domes. But would that be life, or a struggle for existence amid terror? The universe's expansion was a natural law, an inescapable destiny. Yet Earth's warming was a tragedy authored by humanity itself. While we mourned stars receding from us, we set our own home ablaze. Greed for resources made us forget we were transient guests on this fragile planet. Some experts viewed the climate crisis as a microcosm of Fermi's paradox, civilization self-destruct through resource mismanagement. Perhaps this explained the universe's silence. Professor Ban sensed a peculiar connection between these two narratives, the vanishing of galaxies and Earth's ecological collapse. Both led to the same end, absolute solitude. One due to insurmountable distances from cosmic expansion, the other from a species destroying its nest, left alone in a burning desert. With weary eyes, he gazed at the star map on the wall. The light from those galaxies still reached us, light was a patient witness. But if we failed to act now, no one would remain to receive that final light. Earth burned with high fever, not a literary metaphor, but a biological fact. The planet struggled to resist pathogens, yet the painful truth was that we were the pathogens. If we could not control our ambitions and destruction, the future would consist of eternal silence beneath 60-degree heat waves. Professor Ban switched off his computer screen. Darkness filled the room, leaving only the faint glow of streetlights seeping through the window. Might someone in a galaxy 46.5 billion light-years away gaze at the sky with similar sorrow? Were they battling scorching heat, or had they already vanished into expansion's void? The universe is too vast, Earth too small. The cosmos's immensity should teach us humility, the planet's diminutiveness responsibility. We cannot halt fleeing galaxies, but we can prevent this world from becoming hell. The air conditioner's gasp ceased, the power grid, unable to bear the load, fell silent. The room's temperature began rising by the second. Professor Ban stared out the window, imagining the horizon's sickly red merging with galaxies' redshift, one nature's law, the other our mistake. Beads of sweat rolled down his forehead as Professor Ban clung to a final shard of hope. Perhaps those new data on dark energy's weakening offered an exit. If the universe could renew itself, so might we heal ourselves and the world. As night deepened, the heat showed no sign of abating. While the city struggled awake in fever, the universe quietly continued its expansion. Humanity stood between two abysses with intelligence and vulnerability, seeking an exit before the true end arrived. The professor reached with a trembling hand for the glass on his desk. The water was lukewarm but soothed the fire in his throat somewhat. His mind fixated on the thermal horizon concept. Might civilizations have a moral threshold? When temperatures exceed biological limits, does empathy evaporate like water? Would people tear at one another for the last sip of coolness? Reports from 2025 already demonstrated rising temperatures sparking social conflicts and crime. Heat burned not only bodies but melted civilizations' foundations. He recalled the famous analogy he always shared with students: the universe's expansion resembles raisins in a rising cake dough. The raisins, galaxies, recede from each other because the dough between them expands. Yet humanity's growth desires had bloated this dough with toxic yeast. The atmosphere, that thin protective layer, transformed into a colossal greenhouse. Sunlight was trapped, turned into blades of fire. Carbon dioxide and methane enveloped the planet like a thick blanket. Returning to his research desk, he rummaged through dusty papers for an old climate graph. The red line rose vertically like a silent scream in the dimness. Scientists called this positive feedback loops. How ironic a name. Nothing positive existed therein. As polar ice melted, Earth lost mirrors reflecting sunlight, absorbing more heat. More heat meant faster melting. As Siberian permafrost thawed, vast methane reservoirs trapped for millennia released into the atmosphere. Earth was not merely warming, it consumed its ancient energy stores, burning itself. Closing his eyes, visions arose of oceans boiling, coral reefs turning into white underwater graveyards. Tropical rainforests, the planet's lungs, withered into massive torches. All that gave life now spewed choking smoke, a reversal of existence. Newborn children would no longer know rain's patter or wind's coolness. To them, outdoors was a lethal zone traversable only in special protective suits. Social strata measured not by wealth but by own temperature degrees. The rich lived shielded in artificial cooling, while the poor gasped in tin shacks beneath oven-like heat. A heavy ache bloomed in Professor Ban's chest, not physical pain, but deep emptiness of helplessness. He had devoted his life to understanding stars millions of light-years distant, yet failed to notice the ground slipping beneath his feet. Cosmic expansion stole cosmic neighbors, global warming stole ourselves. Matter and energy were two sides of the same coin. Mass could transform into infinite power, but uncontrolled, that power consumed its source. Humanity exploited ancient life relics underground, fossil fuels, to build this gleaming civilization. The price paid was an endless summer where the sun turned from life source to executioner. The room's temperature surpassed 40 degrees Celsius. Professor Ban's consciousness began to blur. The red galaxies from his screen morphed into ghosts floating in the room, as if galaxies too were cast into fire like dry leaves. Poets claimed we are stardust, but Professor Ban now thought differently: we are witnesses to the end. Laboriously rising, he fetched a warmed water bottle from the refrigerator. The slight coolness against his neck offered momentary relief. Yet this small salvation came at a cost, creating that coolness injected more heat into the external atmosphere. Even personal rescue efforts wounded the planet further. What cruel paradox, accelerating destruction for survival. Leaning against the wall, he sank to the floor. In the night's heavy silence, he heard Earth's expansion, buildings creaking under thermal pressure, the city groaning. The planet writhed in agony. What would occur at 60 degrees? Cellular proteins would solidify like cooked eggs, blood thicken, hearts race madly to cool bodies before exhausting and stopping. This was no gentle death, it was slow roasting in a self-made oven. Yet in this profound darkness, a peculiar light flickered in Professor Ban's mind. If the universe expanded to separate us and Earth tested us with heat, perhaps the true lesson lay in realizing existence's value. We had gazed too far, too into distant futures, focused on accumulation, forgetting to live this moment with dignity. Galaxies fled beyond the horizon, we could never catch them. But at least now, we had each other. This breath, however heavy and hot, remained a grace. Human bonds, empathy for shared suffering, the only things that neither expanded nor evaporated. He reached for the old battery radio in the corner. Twisting the dial, he sought a human voice amid electromagnetic noise. Soon, a faint sound emerged. Cooling centers have exceeded capacity. Share water. Support one another. The voice was lonely, yet evidence that life still resisted. Despite all errors and vulnerabilities, humanity still attempted connection. Professor Bang closed his eyes with a weary smile. Perhaps the end was not a grand explosion but a slow fade, granting opportunity for dignified farewell. The heat continued rising. Professor Bang slowed his breathing. Fear no longer gripped him, it melted in the heat, leaving clear acceptance. Glancing out the window one last time, dawn broke, not hope's light, but the start of another scorching cycle. The sun had transformed from nurturing father to merciless tyrant. In his mind, the red light of fleeing galaxies blended with the city's burning red. We stood on the edges of two vast cliffs, one nature's majestic law, the other humanity's small yet destructive error. Both birthed absolute silence. Yet in that silence, he could hear a pulse, his own, those of external watchers, perhaps the planet's final resistant beat. If light was a patient witness, hope was its non-expanding part. On the verge of surrendering consciousness to that frenzy, he thought, hope resides here, in this suffocating room, in humanity's gasping yet yearning heart. Dawn's white light seeped through the window, enveloping Professor Bang's motionless form, transforming it into a luminous statue amid the burning planet. This was the end. Perhaps a new beginning. The sun, once an ancient golden seal bestowing life, had become an executioner's axe gleaming in the sky's midst. In his semi-delirious dream on consciousness's edge, Professor Bang awoke to lung-searing breaths. Dawn's white light touched the room through window glass not as grace but as a razor stripping skin. Opening eyelids felt like cleaving dry earth asunder. His body was a battlefield sandwiched between internal heat and external inferno. Sweat no longer rolled down skin, it evaporated upon surfacing, leaving white salt traces. Professor Bang stared at the dry inkwell on his desk. Thoughts, like that ink, grew heavy, losing fluidity. The vast galaxies, star clusters, cosmic expansion theories in his mind reduced to mere thermal units. Knowledge was no longer power, it was an ominous calculator of how swiftly it would vanish. Attempting to stand, his joints emitted dry cracks. The room's walls, having absorbed heat for days, now radiated it like a convection oven. Wallpaper corners curled upwards, as if fleeing the concrete embrace in this heat. Professor Bang staggered into the corridor. The building's silence resembled an abandoned temple's, not reverent, but the heavy wordlessness after oxygen-deprived life's final thrash. He paused at neighbor Mrs. Ilara's door. The heavy, sweet odor seeping beneath reminded him how swiftly and brazenly death arrived in this heat. The elegant woman's fingers, once teaching piano, would now be eternally stiffened in this scorching silence. Professor Bang considered knocking but lacked strength to raise his hand. Besides, was not sparing the dead from awakening a greater mercy than inviting the living into this hell? Descending stairs, the metal railing scorched his hand. Outside, the city shimmered in welcome like a dystopian landscape, asphalt melted black, buildings expanded under thermal pressure, leaning on one another like a painter's nightmare. Social divide separated into visible vapor layers. Deep in valleys rose cold fortresses, protected citadels where the wealthy dwelled underground, supplied by massive liquid nitrogen tanks. Seasons still existed for them. Snow was no legend from old tales but a daily comfort condensing on windows. Stepping onto the street, air's weight hammered his chest like a mallet. Air was no longer breathable gas mixture but molten lead flowing down his throat. Even shadows were hot. People crouched beneath building eaves, in wall nooks, clinging to vain hope that escaping the sun's gaze ensured survival. Eyes' vitality dimmed, replaced by animalistic survival instinct, that dull, dark hunger. By the roadside, a crowd gathered before a rusted water pipe head. Each dripping drop was precious as diamond. A child waited trembling, palm beneath the copper spout. yet water seemed to evaporate mid-air before touching ground. The child did not cry, no moisture remained for tears. Professor Ban intended giving his pocket's last hydration tablet to the child, but his fingers refused the pocket. This was not physical incapacity but soul shriveling in excessive heat. Empathy was the first human emotion to evaporate when indoor temperatures exceeded 50 degrees Celsius. His mind flowed skyward again, to those fleeing galaxies. He pondered the terrifying parallel between cosmic expansion and Earth's warming. Everything receded from everything else, galaxies from galaxies, people from people, molecules from bonds. This was cosmic dissolution. Heat was order's greatest enemy. As chaos increased, structures collapsed. Memories, laws, loves melted away in that merciless disorder. Matter was energy's most concentrated form, yet now that energy unleashed uncontrolled, burning its vessel, the world. Professor Ban continued towards the city's ancient library, seeking refuge in knowledge's coolness one last time. The library's massive stone walls were among the last bastions resisting external inferno. Entering, faint light filtering through dusty shelves offered momentary peace. The scent of books, old paper, leather, time, our suppressed air's charred odor. Yet shelves stood empty. In final days, people had burned books not from heat, heat was already excessive, but perhaps from twisted empowerment in destruction. Or realizing words held no meaning in this new world. Reaching the deepest astronomy shelf, a worn-covered book remained. He placed his hand upon it, Life Cycles of Stars. Stars' deaths occurred in massive explosions or quiet collapses. Humanity experienced both noisy destruction and silent withering. Then, from library shadows, a figure emerged, old colleague Dr. Aries. The man's eyes were sunken, skin parched like parchment. With trembling voice, Aries said, "Ban. You've come. Seen that red in the sky? Galaxies aren't merely fleeing, they're abandoning us. The universe draws curtains to avoid this ugliness." Professor Ban leaned on the shelf. "We're trapped in a self-made thermodynamic snare, Aries. Expansion without, contraction within our hearts. As temperature rises, soul's volume shrinks." Aries replied with bitter laugh, "Know those lower refuges? Sold souls to enter. But they ignore something, heat always finds a way. In closed systems, disorder never decreases. Those ice palaces will melt in their greed's heat. No escape. Not underground, not among stars." Outside, an explosion sounded, likely a pressure tank or overheated transformer. But the noise buried in library's heavy silence. Professor Ban noticed the small glass vial in Aris's hand, containing ice shards, gleaming impossible treasure, protected by special insulation from melting. "Where did you obtain this?" Professor Ban whispered. "The last," Aries said. "Perhaps Earth's final crystallized coolness. I won't drink it, Ban. I'll watch. The transition from solid to liquid, liquid to gas. Matter's final surrender. This summarizes our history." The two men gazed at the tiny ice shard like a sacred relic. In that moment, external sun's tyranny, people's hunger, galaxies' flight lost import. Only that small, transparent cube's purity remained. Yet ice began shrinking from sly heat seeping through insulation's tiny crack. A water drop fell to vial's bottom, the last tear humanity could not shed. Professor Ban realized then, tragedy lay not only in death but in continuing consumption while dying. As that ice melted, it imparted minute energy outward. Survival had become crime against nature. Aries, Professor Ban said, "Eyes fixed on vial, if all turns to energy, let at least this final energy hold meaning. End with curiosity, not terror." Aries opened the vial's lid. Cool air inside met library's hot atmosphere, forming small fog cloud. Professor Ban extended hand into the mist. The brief, sharp coolness on fingertips evoked childhood, winter morning, mother's cold hand. Memory was heat's unreachable sole refuge. Yet memory too was electrical dance in brain neurons, ending when proteins began cooking. Sunlight entered libraries' high windows at steeper angle. Light turned shelf dust to golden motes. Professor Ban and Ari sat side by side without looking at each other, two aged star observers, awaiting transformation into atomic heaps beneath their sun. In his mind, Professor Ban formulated that complex equation one last time. Mass and energy. Both faces of the same coin. Perhaps this vast heat was the final oven needed to transmute humanity's material form into pure energy, rays of light. Pain was body's cry resisting this change. Cease resistance, and perhaps reach those fleeing galaxies. Outside noise grew, people's screams turning melodic, a monotonous, high-frequency song of despair. The city burned. Building glasses shattered from heat, raining crystal on streets. Professor Ban closed eyes. In darkness, white void replaced red galaxies. That void held neither heat nor cold, only existence's pure, weightless peace. Going, Ares, he whispered. But Ares did not reply. The vial fell from his hand to floor, inside water had evaporated. Viewing friend's lifeless body, Professor Ban felt no sorrow, merely envy. Ares embraced this end seconds ahead. Professor Ban's consciousness wavered with the final heat wave. Entering light now covered everything. No longer could he see library, books, Ares, only white. And in that white, he heard the echo of universe's initial explosion. All began in blast, all would end in blaze. Yet this was no end, a transformation of energy's form. At expansion's utmost edge, somewhere, perhaps this heat would cool someday, sowing new life seeds. Professor Ban clung to this thought, his carbon might regain life in another star's core or child's pupil. When temperature reached absolute limit, Professor Ban's heart beat last. This throb resembled an echo from burning planet center. Then, silence. But this silence was not wordless death but part of universe's infinite, peaceful symphony. Light engulfed all. City, people, pain and dreams. All melted in that vast white, merging into single point. The sun shone not over dead planet but in new stellar dust's womb. The universe inhaled deeply and slumbered in silence. All returned, as it should, to light for the first time. Professor Ban's lungs now breathed liquefied sorrow. The odor rising from libraries' ancient leather-clad shelves burned his nose like humanity's accumulated knowledge, ink, effort's final plea. Ares's lifeless body sat statue-like on nearby chair, peaceful, complete, no longer part of this hell silence. Professor Ban viewed the empty glass vial fallen from friend's hand. Inside water had evaporated, from impossible coolness remained only heat waves trembling on vial's surface. Temperature was no longer measurement unit, it had become absolute monarch. Professor Ban felt sly pain crawling over skin, like thousands of tiny needles infiltrating pores, striving to unravel proteins, bonds, the complex biological structure making him, Ban. Yet this was not mere bodily destruction, it was return to matter's essence. In his mind arose those intricate mathematical realities once committed to paper, mass as truly trapped immense force, that mass and energy repository awaiting proper key. Now the sun turned that key in Earth's heart. One ceiling glass panel, unable to withstand expansion's merciless pressure, shattered loudly. Pouring glass shards floated mid-air like diamond grains before falling, but upon impact, library floor's carpet already began smoking. Fire was not from outside but everywhere, matter's hidden fire leaking out. Professor Ban looked down at his hand. It did not tremble. Perhaps nerve endings had abandoned duty beneath this intense heat. So this is how it happens, he murmured. Voice faint as rustling dry leaves. Lived consuming, go consumed. Momentarily, a millennia-old mountain poet's verse arose. All came from fire, returns to fire, that ancient prophecy now realized with laboratory precision. Professor Ban clung to consciousness's edge's final philosophical fragment. If all turned to energy, nothing truly vanished, merely form changed. Araz's thoughts, Professor Ban's memories, libraries' worthless manuscripts. All now transformed into invisible vibrations, spreading into universe's infinite void. Perhaps billions of years hence, in distant galaxy, this heatwave would cool, igniting new life, new curiosity's first spark. He closed eyes, but darkness did not come. Capillaries behind eyelids glowed with external dazzling white light. Earth now inverted black and white, shadow and light's places swapped. Suddenly childhood arose, snow-covered winter day, holding father's hand amid freezing cold. Then cold felt like enemy, but now he understood. Cold was life's essence. Life was miracle graspable in heat's narrow, finicky range. And that range now closed. From one shelf, perhaps Aristotle or Plato's work, a page detached, dancing mid-air on rising hot airflow. Before falling, intense heat's influence caused sudden ignition. Instant bright orange glow, then grey ash cloud. In that ash, Professor Ban saw his future. Terror turned to profound awe. How paltry human hubris before nature's vast, unstoppable majesty. We, he thought, are universe's observing eyes. And now the universe closes eyes for rest. Consciousness fragmented slowly like melting iceberg. Time bent. Seconds felt centuries long. Professor Ban no longer felt his body, as if merged with room air, burning book smoke, sun's hot rays. Sense of self was last drop evaporating in that colossal oven. Outside's terrifying noise, buildings collapse, ocean's final screams, atmosphere's blaze, now sounded lullaby to him. He felt all ending in perfect harmony. Lightness of shedding matter's weary burden, turning to pure light rays. This was no tragedy. It was liberation. He attempted final breath, but lungs were already charcoal. Nonetheless, in that last instant, a scene arose in mind. At expansion's utmost edge, amid fleeing galaxies, a small blue dot. Perhaps there it remains cool. Perhaps someone gazes at stars, questioning. Professor Ban saluted that imagined blue dot. When temperature reached absolute limit, Professor Ban's mind flared last. Like bulb's brightest moment before bursting. In that instant, he realized mass and energy, life and death, beginning and end did not truly exist. Only infinite change. And he was protagonist in this change's most majestic scene. Light engulfed all. Library, city, continents, memories. All melted in that white, pure and quiet infinite, merging into single point. The sun shone not over dead planet but in new stellar dust's womb. The universe inhaled deeply and slumbered in silence. All returned, as it should, to light for the first time.